One of the most commonly adopted methods of stakeholder mapping is the 4-box grid of the Mendelow Matrix. It involves identifying and mapping stakeholders across 2 spectrums of their level of power and interest in a project. This approach provides a simplistic view of the stakeholder landscape, but can result in ineffective stakeholder management as we fail to appropriately engage with certain groups. It's often suggested that in the interests of time and efficiency that we focus all of our attention on those in the high power, high interest box and ignore all the others. This is a dangerous strategy, as those in the high power, low interest box may be more difficult to engage with if they for some reason move into the high power, high interest box. For example, if finance start to take more interest in your project due to a budget overrun and you've been busy ignoring them for the last 3 months. The reason for mapping stakeholders is not to identify those that require our full attention, but to ensure that we have an appropriate engagement plan for all parties. It should be recognized that creating a map of stakeholder interest and influence is only useful if the output informs our engagement strategy. As stakeholder positions change over time, it is necessary to revisit and update the stakeholder map to ensure that our engagement remains appropriately focused and managed. With this in mind, the Stakeholder Engagement Spectrum was developed by Acuity Consultants Limited, offering a more sophisticated view of stakeholder engagement. It encourages you to determine a more appropriate approach. This heat map illustrates the greater range of engagement and the roles played by stakeholders in supporting or undermining a project. It also highlights the narrow window of opportunity for the successful application of force, such as pressuring resistors and restraining overt detractors. The model was developed in the public sector, and whilst the language it uses may work in such contexts, the use of words like terrorist might make it more difficult for some people to accept when introduced into a corporate setting. We created an alternative hybrid mapping tool that combined a number of elements from other available tools for those that want to avoid the complications of the full stakeholder engagement spectrum without oversimplifying the process. Keeping things relatively simple, it utilizes a 3x3 grid. This allows us to assess the impact that each stakeholder or stakeholder group will have on our ability to successfully implement the project on the vertical axis, from high, medium to low. We then consider our engagement strategy. To do this, we assess the degree of engagement that each stakeholder or stakeholder group will have with our project using the top horizontal axis. This will inform our style of engagement, from raising awareness to secure cooperation to commitment and action. The goal is to have stakeholders who are to the right of the simplified engagement spectrum, adding value to the project through proactive participation, a true collaborative approach of advocacy and ownership. Stakeholders towards the left will require more time and frequent communication to ensure that your project maintains enough visibility to obtain the required outcomes. The main blockers or headwinds that are generating resistance to your project can then be identified and added to the map. We can then explore potential levers or drivers that can be used to reduce the impact of those headwinds. Having identified everyone affected by the project and assessed where you believe that they sit on the mapping tool, you should plan a method of engagement that is most likely to yield the desired outcome. During the engagement process, evaluate your impact and change the approach accordingly. Ultimately, a proper understanding of our stakeholder positions will require a conversation. Early and regular engagement is required. These discussions will also help to appreciate the headwinds or blockers that may be preventing your stakeholder from fully committing to your project. Your stakeholder map should be regularly updated to reflect new information and insights around the priorities, preferences, and perceptions of your stakeholders, ultimately improving the effectiveness of your engagement.